Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to this live event on helping hedgehogs to survive and thrive. I'm Dylan, I'm a hedgehog champion, and I'm so pleased you could join me this evening to celebrate this year's Hedgehog Awareness Week. So just a little bit about what's going to happen over the next hour or so. I'm first going to announce some breaking news about my Hedgehog Aware campaign to reduce gardening related injuries to hedgehogs, in which I will also be joined by a special guest. After that, I'm so pleased that the local Hedgehog Rescue Centre that I've been working so closely with over the last couple of years have been able to take a little bit of time out of their very busy schedule to join me live. Following on from that, we'll have a video show of nocturnal hedgehog activity, which is all footage captured on my night cameras in my garden, and I do hope you enjoy this. It's normally quite fun to see hedgehogs out and about at night and what they're up to. Finally, we'll conclude with a Q&A session as well. So if you do have any questions during the event, it would be great if you could save those until the dedicated Q&A session at the end. But do please feel free to put your questions directly into the chat box anytime, and I'll pick them up ready for answering later on. In terms of technical things, the chat box is located on the right hand side of the screen if you are using a computer or a laptop, or if you're on a mobile phone or a tablet, you can press the live chat button just when you exit full screen. It's there in order to participate, which would be great to hear from you in the chat if you have any questions or just want to say hello. So the chat will run throughout the event, and if you do have any technical problems receiving video, audio, etc., please just send me a message on the chat and I'll try and get everything sorted as quickly as possible for you, but hopefully that won't happen. I do also want to quickly mention, which is that in a minute I'll be putting up a QR code and a link. It's a donation button here. So this is to scan the QR code with mobile devices, or you can click the link in the video description. And this is just to raise much needed funds for the rescue centre that I'll be introducing you to in a little while. They're completely voluntarily run, and it costs them a lot of money to cover costs of essential treatments and equipment. So I'll put that link up in a minute, and there's also more information on my website about that, but we'll have a proper chat with the rescue centre, and then we can have a yes, hopefully that all goes well there. I should probably say a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. So as mentioned, my name's Dylan, I'm 15 years old and I live in South Wales. I discovered we had hedgehogs in our garden probably coming up to 2 years ago now. I was sitting outside taking a break from home learning at school, which was all on the computer because it was the first lockdown, and I heard these noises coming, and there was a mound of leaves and twigs that had been really carefully constructed in a wild patch of our garden, and the noise turned out to be a hedgehog sleeping. Hence much later in the evening we saw some hedgehog activity out on the patio, which is nice, some hedgehogs coming around there, which was lovely to see, and it was just really interesting, especially as it is the first hedgehog that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like a lot of people who told me about, it's the first hedgehog I've ever seen, or I've never seen a hedgehog before, and I just wanted to learn so much more about them, so that's exactly what I did. I quickly discovered Hedgehog Street, which is run jointly by the BHPS, British Hedgehog Preservation Society, and PTES, People's Trust for Endangered Species, and I signed up to be a hedgehog champion, which is a great role to have. It just means you can do so much in the community and help out with talks, with educating people and helping people to learn more about hedgehogs, and the wonderful world of hedgehogs was my first event that I ran. Coming on to that, last year I started the Be Hedgehog Aware campaign with the launch of my website, hedgehogaware.org.uk, and there's loads of useful information and resources about hedgehogs on there, as well as information about this campaign that I've been working on. You can see a sticker up that way, which says Be Hedgehog Aware. That's a fantastic message that I'm trying to push across through that campaign. On the topic of that campaign, coming on to this news, it's been over a year since I launched Be Hedgehog Aware with the aim of helping to reduce the number of catastrophic or really fatal gardening related injuries to hedgehogs in this country. I mean, given time, I'm so pleased to say that the campaign has been met with success as a result of me contacting many large manufacturers of gardening equipment, such as trimmers, just to ask whether it would be possible to add a Be Hedgehog Aware sticker to the machinery itself, just acting as a visual reminder to check for hedgehogs every time for gardeners before undertaking any gardening work, because we have seen some quite nasty injuries before, and it's just such a great success to hopefully have that on the equipment, so it acts as that reminder, as I say. And the breaking news that I have to share with you today is that I'm delighted to be joined by GenPower in my campaign, who are the UK's distributor of Hyundai power products. They're the first company to partner with me to have their lawnmowers and trimmers coming off the production line with the fantastic Be Hedgehog Aware stickers on them. The same, very same sticker you can see in the corner of your screen up there. And that takes me on to my special guest today, which I'm very pleased to announce. So if you give me a second, I can connect up, and hopefully we'll have our special guest. Just a second. There we go, that's great. Just waiting for him to join. But yes, it's great news about GenPower, because obviously they're such a big company in terms of helping with distributors in the UK of all this garden equipment, which is brilliant equipment, but just has that risk factor to hedgehogs, which is why I would like to do something about it to help reduce these injuries that rescue centres are seeing. So I'm just going to switch over now with a split screen with my special guest. So the screen might go blank for a second. I'll be back in a minute, don't worry. There we go. So I'm so pleased to introduce, to welcome you now to, put that in full screen mode, Roland Llewellyn, who is the MD at GenPower, the brilliant company that I've been just talking to you about, who have partnered with me to help gardeners become more hedgehog aware. So Roland, thanks so much for joining me today. GenPower's support with this campaign is absolutely amazing. It was great to go down to the warehouse this week and see all the machines with the stickers on. So firstly, has it been quite difficult? It's been quite difficult for me in terms of reaching out for manufacturers to get them involved. So what was it for GenPower that made you want to support me?
I don't know. First of all, I mean, it was. I think you made. So we're a family-run business. We import Hyundai garden machinery into the UK and Ireland. And I think you and my daughter Georgia, who does the graphic design work for us, communicated back and forward and came up with a sticker design. So we have a lot of input into the design of our products, and for us it's quite a simple task to get the Hedgehogs Aware sticker onto the machines. So it was great for us to get involved and to help them. I'm sure other manufacturers could follow suit. So we really do need to push to get as many manufacturers doing this as possible.
Yeah.
Just with Hyundai, we import about 100,000 machines into the UK each year for garden machinery. So we should have 100,000 stickers, Hedgehog Aware stickers on these machines, so raising the awareness of the campaign.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you. That was one of the things I was going to ask you, was how many machines do you think coming in with the sticker on? That's just so great to be able to do that. I'm so grateful, as I said to you this week, for what you've done. It's great. I remember as well, we were talking this week saying about possibly including information about people to be hedgehog aware in the manuals or in the boxes. In fact, I've got them behind me on the boxes, which is great that I've seen. But is that something you think you'd like to go ahead with, just to tell more people about it?
Yeah, sure. So the first step was we put the sticker on the machines. I mean, it was quite a bit of a rush job because we ordered the machines during the middle of last year for this year. So, but we put the stickers on for new orders moving forward, we can put a section in the user manual explaining the risks to hedgehogs whilst you're using lawnmowers and grass trimmers. We'll put a sticker or an emblem on the packaging also, and we can also put an article on the website listing. So that can be quite an instant job. We can get that done very quickly.
Of course. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. That's such great news about GenPower's support for this campaign. It really is such an important cause. So again, thank you so much for your support with this. It's great. Is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about with everyone about what we're doing?
Well, it's just very commendable what you're doing. I mean, at your age, to be running a campaign like this and getting the publicity you're getting is tremendous. So congratulations. Really, really good effort.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you. There we go. So yes, I've been telling everyone, Roland, about the great work that we've done and things. I've got some photos as well we can see. I'm just going to pop these on the screen for people to see. Okay, it helps so they can hear me. So I'll try again. So this is an example here of one of the lawnmowers that GenPower have down at their warehouse locally. You can see here on top of the pallet with all these boxes behind. That's where they're all stacked up, which is great. And a bit of a close-up on that one now, which is here. Which just shows you the actual machinery here with the Be HedgehogAware sticker in a perfect location, if you ask me, and if you ask Roland as well, which is just right by where you have to put the fuel in for the engine. So again, it's just that reminder, just having it on the equipment is excellent, because people will throw away the boxes. So that's one of the main things about my campaign is being able to have it on the machinery, which is great. And finally, for people at home, there's a close-up picture of the sticker there as well, which is such a lovely design that Georgia from GenPower has helped out with. Just saying, always check for hedgehogs before work, and there's my website address on there, which is fantastic for extra information. So there we go. I'm going to pop back with Roland here. So that's the breaking news section of my event. So thank you so much. Glad you enjoyed that. Thank you, Roland, for joining me. That's much appreciated, and for your support and kind words.
It was good to see you this week in the warehouse.
Yeah, you too. It was
just good luck for the rest of the campaign. You're doing a really good job. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Roland. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Dylan.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
There we go. That was lovely. So nice to hear from Roland, the MD at GenPower there, Roland Llewellyn. So thank you, Roland, for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that and just heard about what campaign that I've launched and my successes with the HedgehogAware campaign. My hope is, of course, that other manufacturers, as Roland has said, will hopefully follow suit. It's not massively difficult to put a sticker on a machine like that, you know. GenPower have managed to do it, and there's some other people who have now got in touch with me saying they're interested, which is great. So hopefully we can just help spread the message, help people to become more hedgehog aware whilst gardening, and just prevent these catastrophic strimmer injuries, which we really don't want to happen to our beloved hedgehogs. So there we go. One of the things I also wanted to cover on tonight's event is about hedgehog numbers. Now, we all know that hedgehogs are in kind of drastic decline by a drastic number. So we know that they've gone from around 30 million in the 1950s to estimated less than 1 million this decade, kind of closer to 500,000. But looking at that and why support from manufacturers like GenPower is so important, we just know how little hedgehogs we're going to have left. They're now on the red list as vulnerable to extinction. And something quite interesting that I wanted to mention in this event was a piece of work that Hedgehog Street, that I mentioned previously, have done. They've recently released the brilliant State of Britain's Hedgehog Report for 2022, which is, albeit a brilliant report in terms of summarising what's happening with our hedgehogs, it's also quite a shocking report in terms, it's quite sad really, of what we're seeing with hedgehogs declining. But there is some good news. I'm going to pop a couple of excerpts from the report on the screen. I think that's better. I think you can hear me. Sorry about that. So yes, so this is the State of Britain's Hedgehogs report. Report is what I was saying. This is a copyright of Hedgehog Street between the BHPS and the PTES. They've done some fantastic research on this about hedgehogs in Britain. So as you can see, one of the main things about the report, which I find quite interesting, is a general summary that they made is that in urban areas the picture is of a stable hedgehog population that might be recovering, whereas sadly in rural areas where hedgehogs once thrived in the countryside, they're now declining quite rapidly. We're seeing that the mass decline is more common in rural areas than it is in urban areas and semi-urban areas, which is a real shame, really. If you take a look at this map, which I find quite interesting, I'm going to drag this into the middle for you, make it a bit bigger. There we go. You can see this map from the extract from the State of Britain's Hedgehogs 22 report. This is just a brilliant stat called hedgehog density. I love that. So it's just, you can see what's happened really, which is quite sad. That since this report has evaluated data since 1985 on to the present day, and you can see just how much it's declined. A lot of areas in England and Wales have had previously 80 to 100% hedgehog density in population, which was fantastic, but now they're just under such decline that it's a shame we can't, have to live with this in terms of for hedgehogs to have to live with this, which is why I'm trying to do stuff to help our hedgehogs. It's for a multitude of reasons, really. One of the things people always ask me, in fact I think I had a question submitted about it before, was why is this happening, this decline in hedgehogs? And it's down to just a number of factors, really. We've got gardens being over-tidied, use of pesticides, which can be really nasty to hedgehogs. There's a great petition, I think they've just actually banned the methylate slug pellets, I think it is, which are poisonous to hedgehogs and other garden wildlife for that matter. It's no good for the wildlife, these pesticides, herbicides, insecticides. And more cars on the road is a common factor. We see hedgehogs squashed on the side of the road. People said that frequently to me, which is obviously quite sad. But yes, it's obviously, there's also the big hedgehog map, if you like more maps, which is run by Hedgehog Street. You can look that up on the internet. It's called the Big Hedgehog Map, and you can report sightings of hedgehogs in your garden, of a hedgehog highway that you have created, and you can also report, sadly, sightings of injured or dead, actually just dead hedgehogs, which you may see on the road network across this country. But yes, that is a rather shocking stat there. I'm going to come back to this slide now, which is great. So there's, as I say, there's no one reason really, and part of my job running Hedgehog Aware is to try and help hedgehogs survive and thrive. The very title of this live show tonight. And we're going to talk in about 10 minutes time with my local rescue centre, because unfortunately I do see quite a lot of number of injured or sick hedgehogs that need treatment when doing rescues in my local area. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play some hedgehog footage, which is always quite exciting because I've been talking for a while. So let's put some hedgehog footage on. So this is all hedgehog footage captured from my nocturnal activity in my garden using my night cameras, which I have some night cameras to demonstrate as well, which I'll do more details about in the Q&A, but there's wildlife cameras like this in my garden, and there's also more fancy cameras like this in my garden which you can view live, which are nice. So these both have night vision, motion detection, etc. And I can talk to you about those in the Q&A session if you'd like to know more about wildlife cameras. But for now, let's roll some hedgehog footage. So hopefully this works. Any problems, do let me know. I'll talk a little bit just about because I know some of the hedgehogs in here, which is quite cool, about who the hedgehogs are, if they've got a backstory, etc. So, to the footage. There we go, if it wants to stay on. So, this first hedgehog you can see here, he's called Ivan. He was a hedgehog I did recently. You can see the date stamp is March this year. So it's a hedgehog, a rescue case that I had to go and see just up the road from me, actually. And Ivan was treated at a local rescue centre and was released back into the wild in my garden, which is a foster garden, which was a lovely thing to see. And you can hear him snuffling around here, looking for natural food source of insects and bugs. As you can see here, the hedgehog feeding station that I have in my garden is quite popular. There's a hedgehog here who's come in. The reasoning behind there being biscuits on the floor is that in a previous bit of footage, another hedgehog has come in and decided to tip the bowl up a bit and spill some of the biscuits on the floor at about midnight, which is quite fun. But now the hedgehog is having to eat out of the bowl or on the floor as a result of the other hedgehog's actions. So there we go. But it does mean you get to see more of the hedgehog eating. So we're putting out hedgehog food or kitten biscuits at the moment for them. Occasionally wet food as well, so meaty cattle dog food is recommended for hedgehogs. Kitten biscuits are great, or you can buy specialist hedgehog food from places like Brambles, which are good, or Spikes, and we can talk about that at the end if you want to know more about how to feed hedgehogs. There's water dishes outside as well, which is so important just to keep them hydrated kind of all year round. So the most important thing is the water for hedgehogs. See the hedgehog's paws out here, which is quite fun. It's kind of cleaning himself, but self-anointing almost. think yes. So this is footage of kind of like a courtship mating ritual. So this is taken from last year, around slightly earlier, late March. So we are coming into hoglet season soon, obviously. So this is one of the best bits of footage I've captured of behaviour, which is why I quite like to replay this one. Again, hedgehog psychology at its best. Look at this. There's some action between what we believe to be two male hedgehogs here, just pushing each other out of the way. Mostly for fun, not for harm, but it can look a bit like a bit brutal. Hedgehog rescues. Here's some of the ones that I've done locally over kind of the last year or so. There's some hedgehogs here. This was Fossil, who was released to a supported garden last year. I think Red is up next, who was released, picked up just down the road, had to be treated for some internal parasites. It's all about keeping hedgehogs warm as well, which is why I see a lot of kind of towels or like nice homes for the hedgehogs in the pictures. It's one of the most important things when I have to go out to do a rescue. It's just make sure the hedgehog's okay, because if it's out in the day, it's normally not okay. There we go. Great. So, hello again. That was, hopefully you found that very enjoyable with seeing hedgehogs there and the nocturnal activity. Obviously, any questions you have, do put them in the chat box there. Now, hopefully, what's up next is a chat with the rescue centre. So part of my job, as I say, with HedgehogAware is helping injured or sick hedgehogs locally. I often get calls from people saying, I've seen a hedgehog out in the day, is it okay? Or I picked a hedgehog up and it's not well. So it's just a case of responding to those calls, and what I do is this primary level of kind of evaluation of the hedgehog, just in a way checking, making sure everything is, well, what's happening with it and whether it needs further treatment, and working very closely with the rescue centre on that as well for their professional opinion on that. So I do things like just checking over for red flags and weighing hedgehogs as well. If I had more space at home, I would think about possibly training and more time as well. Maybe once I've done my exams, do some training for basic hedgehog first aid and set up a mini hospital. But for now, it's just been brilliant working with the local rescue centre that I have quite close to me, which I'm quite fortunate really to have that, because hedgehog rescue centres are very, underfunded, and they don't get any kind of support, and it costs them a lot of money just to stand still. So that's one of the reasons why I try and do fundraising for them at events that I run in person and online as well. I mean, the rescue centre that I work with has been absolutely amazing, always caring for the hedgehog despite, as I say, not getting any funding and relying wholly on volunteers and donations. So I'm actually, hopefully, in a minute, pleased to welcome Helen from my local rescue centre, who, as I say, has managed to take time out of her busy life, her busy schedule of working and helping hedgehogs, to speak with me today. Just a little bit about what she does with hedgehog rescue, and a bit about the process. I think she's got a couple of photos, slides and information as well, just for us. So hopefully she'll join us in a minute for that. Whilst we're speaking, I'll put that donation link up as well if you'd like to donate to the rescue centre on there. That's also available in the link in the description below as well. So if you bear with me a minute, screen will go black. I'll be back in just a second. So, Helen. Great. So, live, Helen from the Rescue Centre. So Helen, thank you so much for joining me live. I know you're going to talk to us in a minute about what happens when poorly hedgehogs are admitted, but I just want to mention, of course, first of all, about who you are and how long perhaps you've been looking after hedgehogs would be a great introduction, and maybe what made you set up the Rescue Centre?
I've got a bit of an echo.
Okay. Do you need to share? Give it a go.
Hang on a sec, let me... Right, can you still hear me, Dylan?
Yes.
Okay. Right, okay. I think it's because I have the YouTube video running in the background as well.
Ah, okay.
Apologies.
That's all right, not
okay, that's cool. I could hear you twice. Yeah, so Rescue has been running since 2014. It was started by a lady called Jane, who is now my rescue partner. She found a hedgehog out in with the hedgehog, went around quite a few different vets, and sadly, I think sort of wildlife isn't necessarily a knowledge that every sort of veterinary practice has.
Of course.
But luckily we did find one, she did find one locally that was willing to help her. She's a biologist by profession, so immediately was interested in why the hedgehog was sick, what treatments were going to be. It just sort of snowballed from there. She sort of realised that there wasn't many rescues locally to us, and decided that she was going to gain some more understanding of what was required. She then met a gentleman with 45 years worth of experience of rescuing hedgehogs, and spent a good year or so with him, training up, understanding what requirements were needed for treatment, etc. And then decided that it was something she wanted to take on. And so she started for the first 2 years on her own, completely voluntary and completely self-funded. And then I met her approximately 2 years later, when we just got talking. I appreciated that I'd given her 6 hoglets that were going to need a lot of care. So I started to sort of help her out, cleaning, just feeding, the general sort of help. And we just got obviously to know each other really well. She asked me then if I was interested in fostering initially, which I agreed to. So it allowed her, if she wanted to go away for a couple of days, it allowed her to have that downtime. So I started doing that, and then slowly she trained me up. So I've now been doing rescue full time now for about 5 years. I can say the first year was probably just fostering and just understanding and learning what medication was required, etc. And then about 5 years ago now I took on full time myself as well. So between us now we do it full time.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. That's such a lovely story. Thanks for sharing that, Helen. I didn't realise that. That's lovely, and it's such a great way of how you got involved with hedgehogs and hedgehog rescue. And as I say, it's such brilliant work that you do. I think you were going to talk a little bit about some of the hedgehogs in care, about what happens when they're admitted, as well as treatments, if you wanted to as well.
Yeah. So it's just 6 slides, nothing major. I will just share my screen now. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, everyone can see that?
Yep, that's now live on the internet.
Lovely. So, most things I've already covered in a brief overview. Seeing the numbers of patients admitted now going up considerably. When Jane initially started, she used to get around 50 to 60 a year. Last year, as you can see, we're up to 162. The numbers are going up. Some of it is because people are becoming more aware, but sadly some of it is because their health and the way that obviously we are seeing the decline of their numbers, it means that more and more are becoming sicker. So we are seeing a significant number. The average hedgehog costs around £50 to take through the rescue. So that's treatment, medication, feeding, bedding, equipment, electrics. We often have to put them on heat pads, etc. So roughly last year we were looking at around £8,000. And that is purely through donations. We don't get any help from any other third-party societies, etc. So it is purely by people who there's a donation. We do talks to WI, local litter picking groups, gardening groups, etc. And then people on social media. We have great following on Twitter, and people are very generous to us. So it allows us to keep going. We certainly, between us, couldn't afford to fund £8,000 worth, but throughout the rescue, out just ourselves. So luckily we have that support. We are available every single day of the year. We have phone calls, knocks at the door, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, in the middle of a party, anything like that. We are there.
I mean, I'm very grateful for you because I did give you a hedgehog on Easter Sunday this year. That was much appreciated. Thank you. And it was obviously in quite desperate.
So we are there all the time, and we have to be. Because sadly they can't wait. If a hedgehog is sick, it needs to come in quickly. They have a very quick metabolism, so if they become ill, they become ill very quickly. So yes, we're there all the time, and it does get in the way of your life. We try to do it between us so that if I've had a really busy day, Jane will pick up the next day, and but between us, we cover every single day of the year. And we are completely voluntary. So people donate, and we don't take any financial benefit from anything. It is purely voluntary. And we have a lady called Sue that fosters for us. So she will take hedgehogs once they've gone through their initial treatment, and they need maybe to stay with us for a little bit longer. Maybe they're a little small and need to be built up, etc. So again, she's completely voluntary. She decided that she wanted to do that and help out. And then we've got a few people that offer to pick up, because if we're in the middle of treating a particularly sick hedgehog, we can't necessarily jump in the car and go pick up another one. We're in the middle of treatment, so luckily we have a few people that we can call on, where we will ask them to go and pick up for us and drop to the rescue. So that's really helpful to us. Pictures on here. So that's a sort of a basic pen that we use. We have a couple of different sizes, depending on the size of the head, whether we've got a couple of hoglets that need to go in together. But that's roughly what they look like, what they're in when they're with us. And then we've got treatment tables and tables for making up their feed, etc. And that's one being weighed, which is really important way of us knowing whether the treatments that we're giving them are working.
Of course.
Okay. So on arrival, this is a list of. I was sat there trying to think yesterday. Right, we're doing automatic pilot. So I thought, right, I'm going to write a list of all different things I would normally do if a hedgehog arrived into the rescue. So immediately we tend to give them fluids. When they come in, they tend to be sort of found out in the day, maybe car accidents, etc. So they tend to be in shock, or they tend to be severely dehydrated. So immediately we give them an injection of fluids, a bit like if you went into intensive care and you were on drip. for instance. And that starts to stimulate their internal organs and basically tries to reverse any damage that's already started to be done. And then we pop them on a heat pad. When an animal is sick, any residual heat is going to basically keep them alive. So we feel the bottom of their stomach, and you will tell whether they need heat or not, because they will feel cold. And even if we're talking 20, 25 degrees outside, we'll pick up that hedgehog that's been lying out on the lawn, and it will be cold. So we immediately put them on heat pads and start to warm them up. And that's really important, because without the heat and the fluids, doesn't matter what you do with them, they will die. So that's the first two things we do. We immediately check in for injuries. If there's anything that's really bad, then we're taking them straight to the vet. Not necessarily to be put to sleep, but obviously we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. If we've got broken legs and things like that, then we've only got so much skill. We haven't got X-ray machines. We can't put them to sleep, and we can't put them under anaesthetic to X-ray them, etc. So that has to be done by our local vet, and they're really supportive. We check their weights. Again, really important, because we need to know that we are treating them to the correct dosage. And then also when we start to get a response, so once the hedgehog starts to become well again, then we would expect their weight to increase. So we are weighing them on a daily basis. Mobility. So we check that they can walk. Sadly, some of that has to wait, but we try to check that they can physically walk as quickly as possible, because if we've got legs dragging, limping, anything like that, then we need to be taking them to the vet. Eyes are really important. When a hedgehog is severely dehydrated, their eyes practically disappear. You think that potentially your hedgehog is missing eyes. So we check them to see whether they're actually still there. Once you've given them fluids over a couple of hours, they will actually start to pop back out, for want of a better word. And then you can see, obviously, the condition of the eye a lot better. And that's a really good indicator of how dehydrated they are.
Okay.
We check in their ears. Sometimes if they come in and they're shaking their heads, it can be due to a neurological, but it can also be down to ear So we check their ears and treat ear mites if seen. Not common, but they can be there. And also not common is fleas. In the last 5 years, I've had 3 hedgehogs in with fleas. It's a bit of a myth that they've all got them. It's not the case, and they tend to have them if they're particularly sick. So the majority of hedgehogs haven't got fleas, and if you see them scratching, it's just because they're a bit itchy.
Yeah.
And also hedgehog fleas are specific to a hedgehog, so they will not be passed on to a dog, which is really important, because people say, oh, I can't have them in my garden because they'll give my cat or dog fleas, and that is never going to be the case. As I said earlier, we check their underbelly just to see whether it's cold or not. We're also checking to see whether it's male or female. If it's female, we are checking to see whether there are obvious teats. If they are, then potentially we've got a feeding mother. We then need to decide whether we need to go back and look for the nest. Mother needs to take priority, but we will ask the finder to listen out for squeaks or to check the area where the hedgehog was found to see whether they can locate a nest. But it's really important that if we know there are hoglets around, that they need to be found pretty quickly, and we potentially, in some cases, will bring them into the rescue with the mother. The smell is really important. The smell of a hedgehog with internal parasites is awful. I have opened boxes and somebody's brought a hedgehog and they said, oh, it's quite lively. lovely. I think it's okay, and the smell is disgusting. It's basically when they're pooing out their parasites. It just creates an awful smell. So we can pretty much tell you as soon as we get a sample whether this hedgehog's got parasites or not. We'll also smell for infection. So there could be a wound or something that's got infected, and that will smell. So that's something that's really important. And then sounds. If we've got something that's come in with a chest infection, you'll hear a bubbling, a crackling. So we are always listening. We're listening for sort of grinding of jaws, anything like that. And then sounds as far as they will scream if they're in pain, but they will also scream if they're scared. So you have to work out whether there's an injury or whether actually once they're in and they're relaxed, they will calm down. But it's not particularly nice sound. I can remember the first time I heard it, I was quite horrified actually. But it's not something you hear very often because wild animals try to keep it quiet as possible because they can be predated. So they try to hide their fear and their injuries for as long as they possibly can. And then samples. So every hedgehog that comes in has a poo sample taken, and we are checking for any internal parasites. And then that will give us the indication of which parasite to treat first, and obviously how sick the hedgehog is. So that is that. And then eating is the last thing. So there's no good releasing a hedgehog that physically has a problem with its jaw or its teeth. So we need to make sure that they are eating. So we give them wet and dry food. If they're only eating wet, then it potentially indicates a problem with their jaw or their teeth. And again, then in that instance, it's very difficult to get hedgehog poop in its mouth. So we would then take that to the vet to gas it down to check, whether there's any problems with the jaw or the teeth.
Of course.
So these activities happen every time we get a hedgehog in. They will potentially happen repeatedly for 24, 48 hours because hedgehogs, as I say, can hide some injuries quite well. So you may go in a couple of hours later and think, oh, hang on, that wasn't there before, or wasn't obvious before. So we are constantly, as I say, checking the hedgehog, certainly for the first 24, 48 hours when they come in, to make sure that we haven't missed anything. It's really important.
It's a lot to do, isn't it? A lot to remember, a lot to think about in terms of having to do it again. But it's so important, and it's a proper triage process, very detailed.
It is. It's exactly the same if you were taking a class. Hospital and intensive. It's everything that we've got to go through, and as I say, some things you just. That's why I had to sit down yesterday. You just go into automatic pilot. And do everything that you need to do. Okay, these pictures aren't pretty. I can't really apologise for them. They are what they are. And some of the other photos that I'm going to show you aren't pretty either. Some of them have got blood on them, just in case anyone's got any sort of revisions to like that. This is becoming the most common reason that our hedgehogs are coming into us. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sometimes you upset me.
Yeah. It's not nice, is it?
Give me a second.
Don't worry, it's okay. It's not nice, and it's
no.
Yeah.
So So because of sorry, excuse me. Well, I wasn't expecting that.
Don't worry.
I don't want to. I do some talks on a regular basis. Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
Calm down. Okay. Right. So starving. We are losing our buds, our insects, etc. So they are struggling, really struggling. Sorry, give me a second.
That's okay.
Okay. So this hedgehog on the left as you can see, it is completely dehydrated. Sadly, most of these ones, when they're in this state, they do not make it. So we're giving them fluids, we're giving them heat. There's no point at this present moment in time, food or anything like that, because they're just not going to recover unless they've had fluids and heat. So they really are struggling. We're not getting the wet weather that we used to. We're seeing more and more heat throughout the summer, and this is why we're seeing them so dehydrated. So if you can do anything at all, bowl of water. That's all we ask.
It's really important. That's one of the first things
I
say.
Water to clean, but it's really important that they have water. They can go without food. You won't get a hedgehog initially dying of starvation, but you will get one dying of dehydration. The hedgehog up in the top right-hand corner, so again, is so tapered. So a hedgehog should be as wide as it is long. So a perfectly shaped ball. This one is pretty much skeletal. All you're seeing is the skull and the spine. And yes, they're exactly the same state. The bottom right, you can see its shoulders, you can see its hips, you can see it's got a waist. A hedgehog should never have a waist. When you look at a hedgehog from above, they should be a teardrop shape, basically. So they should have a lovely round, big round bottom, and you should never ever see a waist or any bones sticking out or anything like that. And what happens when a hedgehog is starving and dehydrated? They come in the sun trying to warm up, because, as I said earlier, their internal organs are shutting down. They're losing any heat within their body, and they will lie out in the sun. And what you're seeing here then on the bottom left is a hedgehog that's been lying out in the sun. The flies have found the hedgehog and they have started to lay their eggs. Now they lay their eggs in any sort of soft orifice. So we're talking mouths, eyes, genitalia, under armpits, anything like that. So that's where they lay their eggs. And if they're not brought to us pretty quickly, being eaten by maggots, sadly. They can recover, but obviously the longer they are out in the day and the more fly strike and maggots, the less chance they have of surviving. So this is this is our worst case scenario. And it obviously it upsets us.
Yeah.
So parasites, all hedgehogs have parasites, but the sicker they are, the more parasites they get. The more parasites they get, the sicker they are. So it's a bit of a vicious circle. As we say here, it's due to lack of natural food. So they end up having to eat slugs and snails and worms that carry these internal parasites. Just a very sort of small number, they can cope with their parasites. All living creatures have got parasites, and they can cope with them. But when they become overwhelmed, that's when they are then pushed out into the day, and that's when you start to see them, out sort of wandering around, because the parasites, they demand more and more food. As the adult worms grow, they're like, I need food, so they push the hedgehog out to find more and more food. So basically the hedgehog is then feeding the parasite and not getting any nutrition itself. So left-hand corner, top left, you've got in small numbers are fine, but when they start to cluster, that can be an indication of sickness. Top right is a lungworm larvae. So that's from mainly slugs. That will get onto the lungs, make them, it'll give them a smoker's cough basically, and that can eventually kill them. Bottom left is roundworm adults, and the eggs that the roundworm adult is shedding. That comes from that comes from earthworms, and then the bottom right then is fluke. So that comes from snails. This can be the worst parasite because it will burrow into the intestines, and once it gets too far, then it's irreversible. The damage is too far gone. So this is all the common parasites that we see for the hedgehogs. Okay, so these are the ones that are as a result of injury understood. So top left, everyone's tidying their gardens, people remove sheds, and sadly we get nests of babies. These babies were less than 24 days old, hours old, apologies. They've been found underneath the shed that had been moved, and the mother ran off and left them, so they were brought into us. Sadly, they didn't survive. They hadn't had enough of their mother's milk, which is crucial for the first few days. But we don't always know how much milk they've had from their mum when they come in, so we have to try. So it can take anything up to 10, 11 days before they start to fail, and there's absolutely nothing we can do. So that can be quite distressing because, you know, you have to wait to know whether actually all the effort, the 3 hourly feeds, the toileting that has to happen, you have to toilet a baby hedgehog, has been, you know, has been not worth it, that's the wrong word, but has actually contributed to their survival. And it's not until you get sort of, as I say, 10 days, 10, 11, 12 days in, that you know whether they actually had enough of their mother's milk at the beginning. And sadly they hadn't, and they did pass away. Top right is a dog attack, which is really common. And sadly, Hedgehog Garden at dusk, and they're there sometimes still at dawn. You know, the dog is let out for its last wee or its first wee in the morning, and they do come across hedgehogs. This one was grabbed by the face, and it was also grabbed by the leg as it tried to run away, and that was also put to sleep. I promise you there are good stories. But, you know, it's realistic. You know, I can't sort of give you slides that show everything's cute and cuddly, because, you know, this is the realities of a hedgehog rescue. Positively with your work, Dylan, we will slowly move away from. And then bottom right is a car accident. The bottom two did survive and they were successfully released. Dylan, you have to let me know if I'm running over, because I don't know what you've got planned next.
That's alright, I'm just thinking about how long. See what Zoom says, because I think they've got that time limit back on now for meetings. But
okay, I think I've got 2 more slides.
Okay, that's alright. Just
Cool. Ringworm. So this is fungal. So this is an external fungal infection, a bit like athlete's foot. So it results in the hedgehog losing all its spines. So this hedgehog was in with us for 6 months. It can take a long time to recover from ringworm. Some of them just lose a patch, and that's fine because that comes back pretty quickly. But in the case of this hedgehog, which is called Tomo, he pretty much lost all his spines, and it took 6 months worth of care before he was released. So that is significant, you know, time for us, and also it means that you know, while he's in, we can't take any other hedgehogs in. So in this instance, we may potentially be the treatments completed and the spines are coming back, then we might hand over to our foster carers too, because then it's just a case of bed and board and waiting for the spines to grow back.
Yeah.
And then finally is our autumn juveniles. Without a doubt, the most hedgehogs we have in are autumn juveniles. They are hedgehogs that are born very late in the year. They will not make it through hibernation. Some of them are found out in the day, and some of them are brought into us when they are found quite late in the year, even if it's in the night. If we see anything that's very small, sort of towards the end of October, beginning of November, then we would start to consider bringing them in through the winter, and they will survive hibernation there. Some of them will hibernate in rescue, and others don't. And as soon as we get a window of good weather, we let them go. But they're the majority from sort of the end of September onwards. We get in autumn juveniles, and we probably have at least 20 hedgehogs in at any one time from September onwards, and the majority of them will be the juveniles.
That was one of the busiest rescue times that I had for working with you as well, was those, you know, just getting up to that weight before hibernation is so important. But yeah, Noah was really busy, as you say.
Yes, it gets, again, we're fairly quiet at the moment because they're just waking up, you know, and we are starting to hear about nests of hoglets, but it's not too bad. But by the end of August, beginning of September onwards, then we are just absolutely at capacity and don't stop. But yes, but that's it. Any questions? I'm happy to answer if I can.
Of course. So feel free to put any questions in the chat for Helen about Hedgehog Rescue. I think we haven't really got much else to do other than the Q&A session at the end, the general Q&A. So if you're happy to stay for that in a minute, Helen, that'd be great. Yes. So.
You want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, that'll be good, and then we can see each other.
Brilliant. There we are.
Lovely. Maybe back over there. Lovely. So, any questions? Let's have a look. Well, let's start if we're going to do. Because I was seeing some questions before as well. People said they couldn't make it, but they wanted to catch up at the end, which is very nice. So one of the questions I had was, and we can both. There we go. This is a question done previously by someone who submitted to me from Kent, and they said that their mother has a wild garden full of plants, shrubs, trees, and grass and pathways, which is lovely. And then they've got this kind of antique shed, and there's a space between the shed and their neighbour's fence. And apparently, a couple of years ago, her mum had seen an adult hedgehog in the garden, but just a couple of months later, they found some hoglets that appeared to have sort of died as a result. They were kind of lying on their back because they were probably dead, which is a very shame. On the edge of this grass border, they looked like it had been some kind of attack in a way from a predator, perhaps. They were obviously saying that the only pet that their mum has is an elderly cat, which I don't think would do any harm, but she did used to see a fox walking through the gardens occasionally, it might think, so it's just a question of whether a fox could do that. I always think badgers and foxes are main predators, but would you agree, or?
No, so I mean, I've got a fox that comes into my garden every night, and they sort of coexist perfectly fine. Any starving animal, whatever it may be, if they have the chance of a meal, they will take it, and who can blame them? You know, they've lived in harmony for millions of years, so there's no reason why we should particularly point fingers at badgers or hedgehogs. Badgers or foxes. You know, it could be hedgehogs, hoglets brought in that have been brought in by a cat through a cat trap. So it's possible that the cat found the nest It's possible that the hoglets failed for whatever reason, and they were just left by the mother. I've cleaned out a hedgehog box before, and sadly found a litter of hoglets that had passed away. The mother was no longer there. Who knows why those hedgehogs the hoglets didn't survive? But that's nature, you know. So no, I wouldn't put it down to any particular predator. It's just one of those things, sadly.
That's all right. Thank you for the help with answering that. That's great. I think, any more questions? Someone's put in the chat before that they wanted to feed hedgehogs but not rats, as their neighbours don't want this, which is understandable. I think one of the things that we originally had a problem with cats, which you may, if you remember, anyone was here last year's event, you've seen some footage of my cat trying to get into the feeding station, which we solved by putting a brick just in front, or we did have buy a new feeding station. We got given one by a company after my work, which is very kind of them, and that had that gap to stop them going through, and that mini wall of fence, and the hedgehogs had to go around, whereas the cat couldn't. We did that, and we also put a bowl of water in front as well. Obviously that's great for cats. Rats are much smaller. Other than putting a bowl of water in front, which hedgehogs won't mind, is there anything else you suggest?
So rats are grain feeders. So if you are feeding the birds, that is why the rats are coming. So the only way to stop a rat is to starve a rat. They will move on. But if you've got a street full of neighbours feeding the birds, then you are going to have, and you have rats in the area, you are going to have rats in your garden. They then come across a bowl of hedgehog food. They're going to take the hedgehog food. So it's the only way to stop a rat is to completely stop feeding. But it's not just stop feeding animals in and around your garden. And I appreciate that people don't want to stop feeding the birds. So there is no solution really. The only other thing is that rats don't like change. So you could potentially move, if you had a feeding station, you could move it around a lot. Hedgehogs will find it because they've got a really good sense of smell. But yes, you can potentially put a rat off if you move the feeding station on a regular basis. But no, it's mainly they're coming for the bird food. And then as a result, we'll find the hedgehog food.
That's very good advice, thank you. On the topic of rats, someone's put in the chat, I've heard rats don't like fresh mint, so maybe some fresh mint in front of the hedgehog feeding station. Advisable, or do you think that good?
No, we wouldn't give any raw food to a hedgehog. No, I mean, you know, it's not a natural diet for them. I mean, we could argue that cat food's not a natural diet either, but cat food is it's good, you know, it's
a healthy supplement.
Thank you. Yeah, if you feed one particular food, it's not good. Yeah, you have to keep it. We only really recommend cat food.
Yeah, of course. Great, thank you.
Regulated. That was the word.
Yeah.
It is regulated.
Yeah, because some of the cat food, I think it's about having that quantity of more meat or whatever first, isn't it? Because a lot of the grain-based ones with cereals in the first ingredients aren't much good for hedgehogs nutritionally.
No, that's right. I mean, yeah, any hedgehog food, any cat food that we recommend, the first ingredient should be meat, and it should be at least 30% meat.
Of course.
Yeah,
that makes sense. There we go. Yes, Heather and Kitty, I must personally, first of all, say to Kitty, Heather's daughter, she said it's really sad to see the number of hedgehogs are dropping in the UK. I hope that hedgehogs are still around when I'm an adult. Well, that's a lovely thing to hope, Kitty. I'm sure with wonderful people like yourself who are helping. So because Kitty was the first person to go on my Young Hedgehog Helpers Wall of Fame, which is on HedgehogAware, my website, and she's been telling her local neighbourhood all about hedgehogs and how to look after them throughout Hedgehog Awareness Week, and it's just so lovely to see people like this involved in helping hedgehogs. So well done, Kitty. You're doing such a great job. And you've also got a question for us, which is that you're trying to raise awareness of hedgehogs in your neighbourhood, and you put flyers through people's doors. What else can you do? Well, I think as someone who helps people become aware about hedgehogs and running Hedgehog Aware, I think there is, putting leaflets through doors and talking to people is one of the most important things you can do. Especially, as a young person, it can be so inspiring just for people to talk to you if they have an interest in hedgehogs. You'll find over time that so many people who you never realise might be interested to have this kind of interest in hedgehogs just because they may have seen one before or heard one about it. And just from speaking to people, I realised that the number of people who have come to me and said, oh, I've seen a hedgehog, or oh, I've got a hedgehog in my garden and I'm feeding it, it's wonderful. And just keep giving out that advice, keep doing what you're doing. It's absolutely brilliant. It's so great to hear someone's doing that as well. In terms of anything else you can do, I think, as I say, leaflets are fantastic. Talking to people mostly, there might be communities or people on your street or a local area who want help. Put maybe leaflets up in parks and things, and there's also more resources like posters and things that you can get from Hedgehog Street as well. Register as a Hedgehog Champion if you haven't already. You might have, not sure. That's something anyone can do through Hedgehog Street. So I'm a Hedgehog Champion, and it also means you get these brilliant resources and things to go along with your leaflets and help out. But yes, you're doing great. Anything else, Helen? I think she's doing a great job. She's only 8.
Oh, I was going to say how old
Yeah.
is she? Because obviously if you've got a local rescue, sometimes you can volunteer. Some of the bigger rescue centres, like the Vale, etc. I know that's they take volunteers in, but I think 8 is probably. I think they'd draw the line at. I think 15 or 16. I think is the limit on age, But no, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. Maybe if there's a little treat or something locally, you could get a little table together with some information and things like that. That's what we used to do. We used to go down to our local faith, put a table up, put some leaflets on, and just start talking to locals. So that's the healthy population, and knowing who's interested in your local area.
Lovely, thank you very much. I think that's all the questions for now, for live. Any other questions, please put them in the chat now. This is last main opportunity. Helen might have to go in a minute as a result of Zoom things if she does get removed automatically by Zoom because the time limit is up. I apologise about that.
That's all right.
But general questions for anyone, because people will watch this on catch up, that I get asked as well, is we covered hedgehog food. Meaty cattle or cat food is kind of advisable, maybe dog food I've heard. Kitten biscuits and water is the most important thing. Water is really in these shallow dishes that you've seen in my garden. It's just so important. There is specialist hedgehog food. If it will come into focus. Brambles crunchy hedgehog food is good. The other brands aren't there. Spike and things I think are good. It's just a case of watching out because some of them
are not great. Yeah. Brambles are really good. They're the only. We use the wet brambles in the hospital. It's a big favourite with the hedgehogs. But we tend to stay away from most of the other hedgehog food because sadly it isn't regulated as is cat food, and there's a lot of ingredients in there that we do not recommend for hedgehogs, and it's more expensive, so there's no point spending money on something just because it's got a hedgehog on the front of it. Just buy good quality cat food, and that's all that's needed.
Very good advice. Another thing I get asked is about cameras, which I mentioned earlier. Quick whistle stop about this. There's 2 types of cameras that I have in my garden. This is a trail camera, a trail camera or a wildlife camera, which you can pick up online. These are pretty good. They're battery powered or electricity. They've got little things inside. They've got motion detection, night vision, and you can put a memory card inside and get recordings there. They're great because they're waterproof, so they can stay out as well, because we're a foster release garden. We have to monitor any hedgehogs that come back, and also it's good to just keep an eye on our hedgehogs as well, because we can see if anything's wrong or anything, make sure everyone's okay. So these cameras are great. They're very popular. They do good quality recording, photos, videos, motion detection, and night vision. The other type of camera I have is this. This is the Tapo, T-A-P-O, C200 model. It's got a very fancy one actually, because it's got a 360 degrees pan and tilt, so it goes up and down. Then you can see all around. And one of the best things about this is you can actually view it live. It's got all the same features as the wildlife camera there, but you can view this one live. It's got motion detection, night vision, recording, etc. And actually these are a bit cheaper than the wildlife cameras from my experience. Possibly because they require electricity to run, so if you have outside electricity, these are a good bet. And they come in waterproof and non-waterproof models, so just be aware of that. But yes, there's other information, any other general questions you have. There's so much information on my website, hedgehogaware.org.uk. There's downloadable resources, printable resources, posters, videos, footage, everything. So do feel free to have a look on there, which is great. I'm just going to change back to great. I'm back on here, which is good. So here we go. That's great. And I think that's it. I'm just going to check, make sure anyone's put any local any more questions, which is good. Yeah, no more questions, which is good. Anyone watching the catch-up website has plenty of information as well. And there we go, really. That's it. That's my live event in celebration of Hedgehog Awareness Week 2022 completed. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks so much to every one of you for joining us live and for all your wonderful questions and interest, all about how to help hedgehogs survive and thrive. Many thanks also to those of you watching this as a recorded event at a later date. It will remain available on YouTube for a long time, so don't worry about that. So perhaps you may feel inspired what to do, about what you can do to help hedgehogs survive and thrive. I'm going to keep saying that, but that is the message of my campaign and this event. Do take a look at the website, my website, or at Hedgehog Street as well, as I mentioned, for information on becoming a hedgehog champion. Any donations that have been made towards the local rescue centre tonight or in the future are truly appreciated, and I know that they'll make such a difference to help treat poorly hedgehogs in this area. The donation link will remain open after this event, accessible via the video description below or the QR code that was in a previous slide with Helen. I'm sure Helen will be really grateful for any donations, as you've seen just how hard she works. Along with Jane and Sue on rescuing and fostering hedgehogs there. It's such brilliant work. So it just leaves me to say thank you once again to my special guests for tonight, Roland previously from Gem Power, and Helen from the Rescue Centre. And thank you to everyone watching. Have a great rest of day. That's it. And happy Hedgehog Awareness Week 2022 as it draws to a close. I hope you enjoyed it and learnt things about hedgehogs that you may not have known before. So thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Cheers, Dylan.
Bye. Bye, Helen.